Welcome to the Friends of Medieval Dublin's virtual walking tour. This video is about Fishamble Street. Your guide is Dr Sparky Booker.
So I'm standing here on Fishamble Street. So I'm now in the kind of northern middle section of the medieval city, quite near to the River Liffey. And Fishamble Street was an access point to the River Liffey. And in part because of that, it was a natural place for a fish market. So that is where its name, Fishamble Street, comes from. It was the fishmongers' district. The actual layout of the street probably dates to as early as the 10th century. You can see now it's really a lovely, curved, quite steep street. And it has a wider portion just here where that van is parking in the centre. And this may have been where the actual fish market was located. It was called Fishamble Street by the 13th century, perhaps before, most likely before as well. And fish were an abundant resource in the medieval city because of its position as a maritime city. And fish was an important part of Dubliners' diets. Fish and shellfish have been discovered in digs in the medieval city. It was clearly something that Dubliners ate a good amount of. And it was important also for religious reasons, because the church prohibited the eating of meat on many days throughout the calendar. Lent and Fridays, as well as other religious festivals. So people would have eaten fish on those days as well as other days. The fish market here on Fishamble Street was regulated by the city, just as all other parts of sort of mercantile life in the city were regulated. There were ordinances that stipulated that fish could only be sold here and not elsewhere. There were laws against selling fish door to door, which must have been something that occurred. And the reasons for that, for keeping the sale of fish all in one place, was just so that they could control it, so that they could tax it appropriately, and the price, the sort of annual fee for having a stall in the fish market was a halfpenny, and it was paid every Saturday by the men and women who had stalls here and sold fish. So this creation of sort of districts where certain types of economic activity took place made it easier for the city to regulate their quality and collect money. You can just see here on the pavement, this is a representation of some of the artifacts found during the Wood Quay excavation. They're dotted in the pavements all around the Dublin civic offices. So you can keep an eye out for that too if you're walking around this area. The other reason, one of the other mentions that we have of this area, of the fish market, comes from the Dublin City Council ordinances, and it ruled that fish could not be eviscerated here, and similarly that in the cattle market the cattle had to arrive already eviscerated. They couldn't be gutted and butchered on site, and the reason for this was just to try to keep it relatively clean. So we've seen that fire and attack were two things that the citizens of Dublin and the mayor and council were concerned about, and that they used these very impressive city walls and various regulations about fire to try to guard against those sort of disasters in the city. Disease and cleanliness was something else that the council often attempted to regulate. So there were regulations about where you could place a latrine, how close the latrine could be to your neighbours, and also as we see here for the fish market, about where you could eviscerate the fish. So you had to gut the fish down there by the riverside and then bring them up here to be sold. Medieval people didn't have the same understanding of disease that we have. They didn't have access to microscopes. They didn't know about germs exactly, but a lot of their regulations do make sense, even in the modern understanding of how disease spreads. They were, some of the theories circulating at the time about disease had to do with smells, foul air. So you can understand how fish guts were a target for regulation. They wanted to make sure that the citizens didn't have all these fish guts within the city polluting the air.